Anda kembali bersama Platinum. Hampir semua topik bisnis bisa didiskusikan saat beraktivitas di tengah-tengah lapangan golf. Itulah sebabnya bisnis klub golf menjadi salah satu industri yang sangat menjanjikan dengan memanfaatkan target pasar kalangan menengah atas. Apalagi bila letaknya di sekitar bandar udara yang menjadi pusat perjalanan bisnis para eksekutif, seperti Cengkareng Club Golf yang sudah ada sejak 15 tahun lalu. Talking about Cengkareng Golf itself, it was built in 1999, just right after the 98 crisis. So how's it doing in the last 15 years?
Well, when you build a golf course, you really have to start planning sort of 4 or 5 years before it opens. It takes that long time to plan it. It takes that long time to build it. So the planning started sort of in the middle of the Asian boom of the 90s. Unfortunately, just as they were about to open, you had the currency crisis of 99. You had other economic factors that changed the way possibly that the course was having to be marketed and having to be run. That caused some problems in the early days for the developer, but they had deep enough pockets that they were able to weather that storm. And sort of since early 2002, 2003, golf has continued to grow and flourish in this part of the world. Quite frankly, we're very bullish about what's going to happen in the future. As I said earlier on, participation rates are continuing to climb in this part of the world. Indonesia is looking great.
Exactly, like in Jakarta and Jabodetabek alone, we see at least 38 golf courses. So the number is really picking up. Do you see like this is like a trend for business people to build a golf course in Jakarta? Is it that profitable?
Well, I think what's happened is golf development in this part of the world, the same as anywhere else, has followed a trend of developing around real estate. Cengkareng is a bit unique. Of course, we have an industrial park that's or a business park that's around our golf, but predominantly we looked at it purely as a golf model, which is why we built the golf course the way it was built. We didn't use a high-name designer. We used someone who could design a golf course that was relatively easy to play, but could still host a major international event. We've hosted 2 Indonesian Opens, 2005 and 2008. So the course itself was designed to accommodate the mass market of golfers and to make it fun.
So being close proximity to the airport, is that an advantage to your business?
It's an advantage and a disadvantage. Obviously, noise pollution plays a little bit of a role in people's experience here. But given land supply in Asia and the tightness of land supply, people are more accepting of that than perhaps they would be in more Western countries. And to be honest with you, once you've played here a few times, you don't really notice it becomes background noise, and you don't really notice it. From a visibility standpoint, Jakarta Airport has about 55 million passengers a year through it. They are right on our tollway, our front door. We have about 50 million people driving through or past our golf course every day. That has to have an impact, a positive impact on our business. But just the sheer fact that we're visible, more so than many other golf courses, and that people can come and play us on their way to flying out, or on their way of coming back from somewhere, or they're traveling tourism, coming into Jakarta, can just stop and play very quickly on their way into the city. It has to be seen as a big plus for us.
And we can conclude that because people come here from Europe, from America, they love playing golf in Indonesia purely for the reason that we provide better service. Is that something you would
I think
say,
Asian hospitality, Asian hospitality is world renowned. And when you compare the service standards in Asia to perhaps the service standards in the US seems to be quite formal. Now, if you go to various golf courses all around America, it's almost the same basic greeting. It's very structured. It's good, but it's very
less personalized.
It's very cookie cutter in many respects. In Asia, there's a natural sense of hospitality. There's a sense that people want to look after you and to take care of you. Thailand's a very good example of that, and certainly that happens in Indonesia as well. A great example of that is Balinese culture. I think whenever anyone that's visited Bali will tell you that the hospitality there is phenomenal, and the way that they're treated is phenomenal. We try to bring that into our club and to ensure that our staff treat people the same way, and that's really it's one of the key components to what we do.
Tell us about the demography of your members.
Well, our members, it's an interesting bunch. Because we're such our location, we have obviously a large portion of our members are Indonesian. We also have a very large Japanese contingency of expatriates here, a lot of them for building in roads or infrastructure, rail, and other Japanese multinational companies are here. We also have a large Western expat community. And they play at different times. The Japanese tend to play Sunday mornings, the Indonesians tend to play Saturday mornings, the Western community tends to play Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon. And in member events, they all get together and have a great time. So, you know, it's a different, it's a very mixed club. It's a very diverse club. It's a very diversified business in terms of the culture of people. We don't go after one specific subset. We create a product, and people are attracted to that product.
Okay, so how was the Indonesian Open, the two tournaments that you hosted? How big is the impact in the business?
It's not a big impact immediately. What golf events do for courses is put you on the map. It establishes you as a credible golf course. It establishes you as a course that the best professionals in the world can play on. We had Darren Carr playing, we've had Colin Montgomery playing here. So some of the world's best players have actually played here. And that's really what it does. In terms of a big spike in business, following the event, yes, you'll find that 2 or 3 weeks following the event, a lot of people want to come and play your golf course. So there is an upside. But there's also a downside economically. You have to spend a lot more money preparing the golf course. You have to spend a lot more money making sure that your facilities and your marketing that you use to support the event is there. Plus you lose the operating revenue for a week, which can be quite painful. So when you add it all up, you're generally lucky to break even from the uptake in business to the event that you hold itself. But what it does do is it creates, members love to see it, it creates, again, a sense of place for the golf course. A little bit of prestige, the members are very proud, and that all adds an intangible value to the product that you're offering.
You've been in the golf business for about 25 years, predominantly in Asia. How do you see Indonesia can improve itself to become a better destination for international golfers?
Well, the golf courses are already here, the quality of the courses are already here. I think that, you know, I compare Indonesia sort of to China back in the mid-90s when I was up there in the early days. I was working at Mission Hills and a few the other developments for very wealthy Chinese businessmen. And golf was in its infancy there. Golf's gone beyond that in terms of the player numbers, but I think in terms of the experience, there's still a lot that Indonesia can do to improve. The conditioning of the golf courses is number one. People want a very highly conditioned golf course. So we need to get better at our agronomic practices. We do need to continue to refine our food and beverage offerings in the clubhouse and the hospitality side, really plugging into what golfers want. We have to understand the market a lot better. There's very little information in the market about how many golfers are participating, what are their likes and what are their dislikes. We can track for our own golfers through our own internal surveys, but from a general marketing perspective, or a general market perspective rather, there's just not a lot of information out there, unlike in the US and Europe. So that needs to improve. From a tourism standpoint, you know, Bali is always going to be a great destination. There's some great courses down there. There's been refurbishments recently. There's talk of another refurbishment at Nirwana that's potentially going to happen. So all those things are going to drive interest in that particular region. Jakarta, the courses are here, the quality is here. The problem is getting around Jakarta. You know, tourists can come here and spend 3 hours, 4 hours a day just getting around to the various courses, and that's really something that they don't want to experience. So when infrastructure improves, and certainly it sounds like that's going to be happening over the coming years, I think Jakarta will then evolve as more of a tourist destination.
Seems pretty green for the future of the golf business for Jakarta Golf. Thank you so much, Kurt, for joining us in the program.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Enjoyed it.
Anda kembali bersama Platinum. Sejak resmi menjadi sponsor Festival Film Cannes di Prancis tahun 1998, nama Chopard sudah sangat lekat dengan figur artis ternama dunia seperti Cate Blanchett dan Marion Cotillard. Awalnya pada tahun 1860, Chopard adalah butik jam di sebuah desa kecil Songvellier di Swiss. Namun pada tahun 1963, bisnis jam premium ini pun berpindah tangan ke seorang taipan perhiasan Carl Scheffel yang kemudian membawa nama besar Chopard ke dunia internasional. Kini koleksi Chopard identik akan taburan emas dan berliannya dan sudah hadir di Indonesia lebih dari 15 tahun. Namun you're the managing director of Chopard Asia for the last 1.5 years. How do you see Indonesia How important is it for Chopard?
Well, Indonesia is a very important market to us. It's actually very different to many of the other markets that I'm responsible for, in that it has very little sort of inward tourism. So the business that's conducted here is very much local based. That's not to say that it's poor, it's just the fact that is a fact of life. In due course, I think we'll see an increase in tourism, but at the moment it's a very stable market because you're not concerned with the vagaries of tourism. But it's a good market, it's a growth market for us. We've seen in the last few years some big differences in the way that the consumer is reacting, responding to our collection. A few years ago, you'd see men's steel watches as the main basis of your collection. Increasingly, ladies' diamond watches and all the way through to high jewellery for the top-tier consumer in this market, which is very exciting for us. And of course, as the market develops and as the middle-tier consumer starts to become more affluent, we expect, I think, to see the same sort of trends developing in the market as we've seen in the top-tier consumer over the last 3 to 4 years. So some big changes, very exciting position for.
Do you see any different treatment for Asian market, Indonesia specifically? I mean, you have your global branding, which is very international and everyone's aware of Chopard. But do the Indonesians appreciate the brand as much as others from other countries?
I believe they do. I mean, the consumer is very aware of luxury goods. There's still a lot of work we have to do in that regard. But the Indonesian consumer is looking for, reputable, quality luxury brands who have a good reputation and a good aura in the marketplace, and that hasn't changed, and that's the same, I think, throughout the whole of the world. But it is, to some extent, a question of education and acknowledgement by the Indonesian consumer that the brands have different profiles and different characteristics and different ways of presenting themselves, and progressively that will become, I think, clearer to the Indonesian consumer.
Talking about the business, how big is Indonesia's contribution to the growth of the business and the revenue of Chopard in Asia?
It's growing, and growing probably faster than many of the other markets. Clearly there are markets like Singapore and Korea and Taiwan that are further developed, and there are bigger markets for us. But in the great scheme of things, Indonesia is growing, it's growing very fast, and I think we see that accelerating through, and with 240 million consumers in the market, the potential in Indonesia is absolutely enormous. And so we see going forward, Indonesia as being a very, very important market as far as the Southeast Asia region is concerned.
If you can put Indonesia in terms of rankings, where would Indonesia be?
It depends if you're talking globally or if you're talking
probably
in the Asia Pacific.
For now?
In the Asia Pacific, clearly you've got Singapore and Korea and Taiwan, which is stronger, but I would have to say, and then of course Thailand as well. I would say it comes after Thailand in terms of the amount of business that is important, exactly. But that is of course influenced very much by inward tourism.
Okay, so looking at your global sales, watches still contribute probably 50% of the total sales. And jewelleries and other accessories are starting to pick up from what we observe.
Yes, we've seen that.
But we haven't seen any jewelleries in Indonesia yet. Do you plan to introduce your lines of jewellery and accessories for Indonesia?
It is a fact that in the Asian market, watches are very important, and very much more important than in sort of the European market. And so the watches are probably representing maybe 90% of our turnover. But we have progressively, as women are starting to make their own purchase decisions, who are interested in jewellery, that the jewellery business is actually growing. And because we're very strong in jewellery and our associations with Cannes and the Oscars and the BAFTAs, we're in a good position to take advantage of any shift in the change in the marketplace.
And do you see Indonesia taking over Thailand or Singapore later in the future?
That's an interesting point. I think Singapore will be our hub, and the business that and of course it's only an hour and a half by plane from Jakarta. So Singapore will be the base, but with 240 million
and growing,
consumers, and we've got 6 million in Singapore, who knows?